Good morning. This is Father Stephen Kelly from St. John's Church in Detroit. We're continuing our 5-minute morning meditations. And when I say 5 minutes, I mean that very loosely because obviously we've been going over a little bit, but I hope you'll bear with me. Our morning meditations are dealing with the various readings that are assigned for morning and evening prayer, what we call the daily office lectionary. And although we've been dealing primarily the last couple of weeks with the epistle readings, right, those letters that were written either as a theological tome, the letter to the Hebrews, or those letters that were written as the type of epistles that went to individual communities to answer their questions, which were then shared with other communities. This morning I want to take a look at the reading from the book Exodus. Now, of course, we know Exodus is one of the books of the Old Testament, what we call the Pentateuch, part of the first 5 books of the Old Testament. And today's lesson comes on the heels of Moses having gone up to the mountain, having gotten the 10 Commandments, come back down, found the people of Israel had made a molten calf, and they are worshiping a false idol. Moses breaks the tablets, goes back up onto the mountain and intercedes for the people of Israel, for God to forgive them their sins. God once again gives to Moses on the tablets the 10 Commandments and sends Moses back down to give this to the people of Israel, to guide them and to lead them, and how they're to live this relationship with him through the original covenant. And so, interestingly, I want you to hear this particular part of today's lesson. We're in chapter 34, and I'm picking up at verse number 29. And it came to pass when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tables of testimony in Moses' hand, and he came down from the mount, that Moses was not the skin of his face shone while he talked with him. And when Moses and all the children of Israel saw Moses, behold, the skin of his face shone, and they were afraid to come nigh him. And Moses called unto them, and Aaron and all the rulers of the congregation returned unto him. And Moses talked with them, and afterwards all the children of Israel came nigh, and he gave them in commandment all that the Lord had spoken to him on Mount Sinai. And until Moses was done speaking with them, he put a veil on his face. And when Moses went in before the Lord to speak with him, he took the veil off until he came out. And he came out and spake unto the children of Israel that which was commanded. And the children of Israel saw the face of Moses, that the skin of Moses' face shone. And Moses put the veil upon his face again until he went in to speak with him. Now, it's the people, the children of Israel, who wanted Moses to veil his face because they could not tolerate the brightness of the reflection of God in Moses' face. It's interesting for us to think that Moses saw God face to face, and the radiance of the light and the glory of God literally reflected upon the person of Moses so that his face shone from having been in the presence of God. Now, I want you to leap forward to New Testament times, having put on this idea of Moses' face shining. And what is it that you think about in the story of Jesus about something being so absolutely glistening white that he literally shines? Well, of course, it's Jesus. And in the story of the Transfiguration, when he goes up on Mount Tabor, and he suddenly appears with Moses and Elijah, right? The 2 great, again, Moses, who we just talked about, and Elijah, the great of the prophets. He literally, the description is that he shone like purer than no fuller soap could make it bright. In other words, he, like Moses, was so bright that one could hardly even look at him. Now, there's a difference, of course. Moses shone and had to put the veil over his face so people could even look at him. Moses shone because the glory of God reflected off of Moses. Moses was radiating the light of God to the people of Israel to prove to them that he had spoken with God. But in the case of Jesus, what actually is happening on Mount Tabor with the Transfiguration is that it is his own glory almost seeping out. Those apostles who were witnesses to this transfiguration saw the real glory of God in Jesus Christ. They got a glimpse into what is underneath the veil of his human flesh, right? Jesus takes human flesh, becomes a human being, and that becomes, in a way, a veil to hide the glory while he is spending his time on earth, ministering and teaching and healing, and ultimately paying the price for our sins upon the cross. So again, when we read the Old Testament, we should be reading it and looking to what it is that it tells us of, not only about God as he speaks to the Hebrew people, but we read it with New Testament eyes as well. And reading it with these New Testament eyes, we see what is happening in Jesus's ministry because they have a mirror reflection in the Old Testament as well. The people of the Jews who knew their Old Testament, who were living their Old Testament, would have certainly recognized this in Jesus, and that's why we need to know our Old Testament as well, so that we can recognize it and see him as the fulfillment. So let's get close to Jesus. Let's allow his radiance to reflect on us, that we may shine with the glory of God and attract people, not to ourselves, but to Jesus. I hope you have a great Saturday, and tomorrow morning we keep the holy day and worship on Sunday.